Okay, thank you. Station.
Good morning, people. It's a beautiful sunshine. I'm here to provide you with a reaction to the video titled Cure All Your Fears by this gentleman, Mr. Manoj from Singapore. Well, I was anticipating when I saw this title, he's going to be providing some insights or at least some tools or tips as to how to handle your fears. The most popular ones like scriptophobia, acrophobia, trypophobia, agoraphobia, ophidophobia, and what? You have aerophobia, astrophobias, and then what else you got? You got that fantastic phobia that is now popular on the because of social media. It's called as happy phobia. So just to give you some value, I spoke to you, or I mentioned to you about scriptophobia, right? Now, scriptophobia is the fear that is present in people who have this fear of writing things or signing their name in public. Okay, so this is the fear of writing in public generally. You got this fancy phobia, arachnophobia. Arachnophobia is the fear of spiders. Okay. Now the next fear is acrophobia. That's the fear of heights. And then I also mentioned to you about agoraphobia. That is the fear of space. No wonder Agora, you know that hotel booking. I suppose they have got this name from this phobia. Agoraphobia means fear of open space or fear of space. Next, you got aerophobia, which is fear of flying. And then you got astrophobia, that is the fear of thunders. Then you got this trypophobia. I think it's pronounced as trypophobia. Trypophobia means fear of holes, HOLES. Now you got this another important phobia, or I would say another most popular phobia is called as ophidophobia. Now, ophidophobia is the fear of snakes. Many people have got this fear of snakes. And then because of social media, off late people are suffering from this phobia called as aphiphobia. It's spelled as HAPHE. Phobia. Aphiphobia. Aphiphobia means the fear of people touching you. Can you imagine? Now people have developed a phobia, what is called as aphiphobia. So people don't want you to touch them. So if the moment you touch them, they would immediately ask you, why did you touch me, or who touched me? You know, I am reminded of this popular saying. When Jesus was amidst the crowd, immediately asked his disciples, "Who touched me?" The disciples immediately remarked, "Master, do you see the crowd that is around you? People are so much here, and you're asking us who touched you." Immediately, of course, Jesus said, this touch that I had felt was very unique. Now people are taking up the role of using phrases from Jesus. Who touched me? Why did you touch me? you know the planet. We just got one planet. Sometimes it really feels it's appalling when people really use phrases like this. Who touched me? Why you touch me? You are living in the most crowded planet in the world, or in this universe. I would say. I can't even use the word world because we are living in the world. So this Earth, which is the only planet where human habitation is possible, is now so crowded that we are now heading towards the 8 billion mark. And now we have to. Now, did you any time, or do you know why social media came up? Social media came up to emphasize the attitude of knowing each other and living in harmony. That was the reason that social media came up. Because at the end of the day, we are going to be so much crowded that we need to endure each other's inadequacies. That is the priority that we need to, or that is the most important attribute that, or characteristics that we need to develop. Because, you know, I do not know how many of you all have traveled to Tokyo. Have you tried boarding into the subway in the early morning hours, the busy hours, the rush hours? Impossible. It's jam-packed like sardines. Next, have you any time tried traveling or catching the metro in Bombay, in Mumbai, in India? Jam-packed. The first class is so jam-packed that you would really wonder, is it first class? Okay. Now, just to give you some information, now this aphiphobia is developing among the people who are predominantly using the social media beyond the expected expectations, or in other words, beyond the accepted limits. Always they get up with social media, they go to bed with social media, so they do not have that touch with humanity, so they lock themselves up. I'm not joking. There are several cases found all over the world where people lock themselves within their rooms, within the apartments in their rooms for 10 years or so. All that they do is to just communicate on the social media. And when they come out, they are so frightful, fearful, and fear takes them up. Okay? So the point what I'm trying to say is, fears are real. Fears exist. Now, when I saw the title of the video, Cure Your Fears, I was excited. I was so much filled with great happiness, or the right word should be jubilation, because I wanted to know how to cure fears. Of course, everybody have fears. Everybody have some sort of fears, and to come over them or to overcome them is not an easy joke. I'll tell you a simple story. Now, I mentioned to you about a fear called as ophidophobia, right? Now, ophido, it's spelled as OPHIDOPHOBIA. It means fear of snakes. Now, there was a scientist who was trying to conduct a research to really find out if fear is an existing reality. So what did he do? He went to his jailer friend and asked his jailer friend if there were any prisoners who were supposed to be put to death by lethal injections. So his jailer friend replied back to the scientist, telling him, yes, of course, there is one particular prisoner who is going to be put to sleep on this particular Friday because of his offense, and judgment has already been served to this man, and this is the day that he is going to be administered this lethal dose. So this research scientist who's studying about fear to know if fear is the real existing threat, or is it real indeed, sets up an appointment with his jailer friend and requests this jailer friend that he would like to administer this lethal injection by himself. But since this person being a scientist and a prominent doctor of repute, the jailer friend agrees to this, and then the date was set and the chamber was exclusively made out of glass so that people can visualize and see what is existing or what is happening inside that particular enclave. So the research scientists, along with his team, they arrive on this particular day. Now, this prisoner was brought in, okay, and he was made to sit on that particular chair. Of course, he was handcuffed and tied and banded securely to that particular chair. And all of the people, the jury, of course, they would have to see if the execution is done in a proper manner. They are all seated there along with the judge who pronounced the judgment, the police officials, and the jailer. So this particular man was there in that chamber, glass chamber, viewable by everybody. And then the scientist comes with his assistant. They open up the chamber, they go into the chamber, and the scientist tells his assistant to open the box that was brought in. So the assistant to the expectations or to the inquisitiveness of those people who are gathered around there, opens the box. The scientist and this assistant, they leave the chamber, lock the chamber up, the glass enclave, the glass chamber. Now what comes out of the wooden box? A huge king cobra comes out of the wooden box. Now the prisoner, who is apparently found to be suffering from Ophidophobia, starts to get into that process, with the fear slowly engulfing him, slowly taking him over. He sees the snake watches him, the king cobra watches him. You know, king cobra is a very daring snake, right? It watches the prisoner watches the snake, both of them meet eye to eye. Now, a strange thing happens to the prisoner. He starts to sweat profusely, right? Now, the sweating is so profuse that it's so visible to the people seated outside the glass chamber. Now, the scientist is observing. He is watching this. Now, the snake, seeing or considering the prisoner to be a threat, immediately advances. You know, king cobra is one snake which never hesitates to strike. In other words, if it's threatened, it goes towards the threat, right? Unlike other snakes which flee from the threat. So the king cobra gets close to the prisoner who's seated on the chair, raises its hood, watches eye to eye to this guy. The sweat is profuse now. This man gives out vibrations. Of course, when you are threatened, you give out a very strange vibration. And snakes are known to pick up those vibrations. So in no time, this king cobra picks up the vibration, stretches his hood and launches that lethal attack, that lethal strike on the forehead of this prisoner who is seated there. Within a fraction of seconds, the prisoner foams, right? Foam starts to come out of his mouth. It's a sign of snake bite, right? And of course, everyone knows that the bite from a king cobra is terrible. Everyone knows this. So this prisoner, who had an history of ophidophobia, now starts to foam. In no time, comes to a standstill, comes to a total rest. You know what it means. As everyone gathered around are watching in dismay and with shock as they rise up to leave, because everybody knows that it's a lethal bite and its chances of surviving is remote. So they all leave. Of course, the judge has witnessed this execution, and along with the jury, and all of them depart while the scientist is still standing before the glass chamber along with the jailer. So the jailer goes to the scientist and says, "Oh man, you have done the execution very well and you can go now." So immediately the scientist tells his assistant, "Come on, catch the snake." They catch the snake. They bring the snake to the scientist. The scientist holds the snake, right, presses its head, opens its mouth, stuffs his finger into the snake's mouth and closes it. The jailer is shocked. "Are you crazy, man, to do that?" The scientist then tells to the jailer, "This snake has got no fangs, my friend." And still this man meets his end pathetically. So the point I wish to make through this story, whether this is it's a published or not, that's immaterial. The point that I'm trying to make through the story is fear kills people. I'm not joking. Fear kills more people in this world than snake bites. You want to know the facts, you can go read the facts by published research. The very fear of your future drives you to do insane things, drives you to do foolish things. You follow me? So that's the reason it is said, the brave die once, but the coward dies 1,000 deaths. So why did I tell you all the stories? When I saw the title of the video, Cure Your Fears, I was excited, amazed, stunned, flabbergasted. I wished to know how to cure fears. But apparently, he starts off speaking about the fear that is involved, that arises because of public speaking. Of course, later on I realized that he is a public speaker and that's his business. So he wants to pitch his products, and so he gives the title as How to Cure Your Fears. But I don't want to sell no products, okay? I'm here to give value to the people who are watching this video. So coming back to the point, since I'm providing you a reaction video, let me make it clear. Existence of fear is real. Different types of fears are existing, and if you put a person to that fear, that the fear that the person that is experiencing, the chances are that the person will suffer from heart attack. I'm not saying this, research has proved that. Several researches are there. So it is imperative to understand, if you find out that people are suffering from fear, some sort of phobia, and if you are their friend, you have to be careful not to introduce them to such fears. Now, you have fears like sebophobia. Like the sebophobia is a fear of eating in public. Or it's a fear of eating, it's a fear of food, in fact. I should say sebophobia is a fear of food. Do you know the fun thing? Fear of eating in public. People are considering that to be as SAD, that is social anxiety disorder. Can you imagine? There is no fear associated with fear of eating in public. So that would mean that you got to. So if you say that you have a fear of eating in public, it means you are suffering from SAD. So that is now a sickness. Well, I don't want to go into that aspect of dealing with SADs. Now, let me make one point clear. Fear is a reality, and people have different types of fears, and we cannot take them lightly. Of course, immediately a few scientists may claim it's a cognitive disorder. Well, there is a saying in the English language, only the man who receives the beating knows the impact of the beat. In other words, only a man who gets hit knows the tenacity of a whip, but not the man who uses the whip. Do you follow me? Let me get into the reaction part. Okay? Now, the speaker introduces three concepts. He talks about expectancy and exposure, and then experience, reach out to people. Now, expectancy. Now, there's a lot of difference. Do you know the difference between expectancy and expectations? Now, most of the times we use the word expectations, not expectancy. Now, expectancy means, or it defines a state of expectations. Now, expectation. Now, what is the definition of expectations from the mathematical point of view? It means you gather the probabilities of all the events that would determine the expectation of the event that you are seeking for, and then you arrive at a value. So, if I were to ask you, what are your expectations for this year? So, it can be many things, right? So, many parameters go into determining your expectations for your life, your expectations for this year, your expectations for your child, your expectations for your married life. So, it's not one single attribute or variable that would determine. You understand what I'm saying? It's a multitude. Okay, having get that done, the speaker talks about expectancies, and he says expect the best and you reach no matter what. There is just one problem with that. If you are a public speaker, now you go with great expectations on the stage, or with great expectancies, or whatever you want to define. You wanted a favorable probability, right? Now, when you do that, when you get onto the stage and expect have this expectation that all the audience would like or love the speech that you have given, that means you're only putting yourself in trouble. Why do I say that? It's imperative to understand that not everybody will like or love whatever you talk. So I'm not here to train you on public speaking. Public speaking is a science by itself. But I'm giving you some tips, or with reference to the video that I saw, what the speaker mentioned about expectancy. He says, go to the stage expecting the best. If you were to go to the stage expecting or having this expectation that the audience would love you, then you're going to put yourself in trouble. You follow what I'm saying? So never do that, because your expectations would only kill you, make you more bitter, make you hate yourself. I'll tell you this illustration. Isaac Newton, in fact, for a brief period, stopped all publications. You know why? He produced a theory conflicting Hooke's. Hooke's law. Now, at that time of Isaac Newton, Mr. Hooke was a great guy. He was a great guy, and he was a recognized man at that time. So, Hooke gave a critique on the assumptions or on the theory process by which Isaac Newton arrived at this particular conjecture or hypothesis. You name it whatever you want to name it. After reading those remarks, Isaac Newton became so much saddened and grieved. He literally locked himself up for years. Now, why am I telling you this? Isaac Newton suffered this because he had great expectations that people would recognize, specifically people of repute would accept his point of view. So that expectations made him more bitter. You see great fighters who are in the boxing field, great fighters who are in the boxing arena. They get into the ring with a thought process that, I am the best and no one can put me down. They go into this thought process and they lose the fight, right? They lose this fight, one fight, and they go into a state of seclusion because of expectations. You understand? Expectations are totally different from preparation. Okay, don't misunderstand or don't confuse these two concepts. You hear me what I'm saying? So, expectations and expecting the best. No. You can't go with that frame of mind. So that is my first reaction to that point. Of course, during the process, he mentions the example of a young man who says that he gets frightened. He prepares so much, and then when he stands before his bosses, he gets frightened so much that he's unable to open his mouth. Well, this fear is really true. You know why this fear is really true? In certain cultures, they put the boss next to angels. I remember this beautiful movie. It's a Bollywood movie. There, a very rich man, he comes out of his car, and a beggar stretches out his hands, expecting some alms from this rich man. You know what the rich man does? He pushes this guy and he kicks him. You know why he kicks him? Because he touched his suit. Can you believe that? But don't think that this is just a movie, right? This happens in real life. Because people say movies are predicting the virtual world which doesn't exist. No. The directors and the story writers who are writing these movies, and the directors who are directing these movies, and the producers who are investing their money and time and effort into these movies are great visionaries. You have to understand that. So to outrightly say that movies are virtuality. No. You have to watch some of these great movies that were produced. They are not virtuality, they are reality. Movies talk about things that are happening in the society, the things that will happen in the society, and the things that already happened in the society. Why? You need to know these stories. You need to know these lessons, so that you can have a life which is what I would say. You can suitably change your path. So these are all lessons, life lessons. Okay. So now coming back to the point. Let me come back to the point. So the beggar touches the suit of the rich man. The rich man pushes the beggar and kicks him. Now, the hero of the movie walks to the rich man. Okay, and then he says, "Why?" Immediately, rich man says, "Do you know who I am?" The rich boss, so-called rich boss, he proceeds to say, "Do you know who I am?" Now, to that, the hero says, "For sure, I know you're not an angel, and I don't fear demons." For sure, I know you're not an angel, and I don't fear demons. But this is a beautiful. Well, you have to understand that there are. The reason that this movie became popular is that the movie showcases the cultural stigma that is associated with being poor. Now, being poor is not a sin. You have to understand that. But the world more too often condemns and thrashes, insults and humiliates poor people. Well, now what happens? I'm just reviewing the scenario, the case study that this young gentleman who goes up to the speaker and says that he fears the bosses. Why? Because in many of the existing cultures, the boss is viewed as someone who's from the world unknown. That is the reason, even when the boss is coming out, you will get information or you will get notice from the boss's secretary or from the boss's assistant. Oh, the boss is coming. Oh, the boss is coming. The boss is coming. Excuse me. So what? The boss is coming. Does it mean you're pushing drugs in the office, or you are committing crime inside the office, or doing some inappropriate sexual advances in the office that is not acceptable? No, you are working. So why would that fear be in you? So what happens is that this fear is manipulated, multiplied, magnified. Literally, most of the employees in the organization, they become bossophobia. That's the word I want to place. So the fear that the young man was portraying to the speaker is a real scenario that is happening in many cultures across the world. The young man's fear is that, what if he would have mentioned something inappropriate and the boss gets wild? Bosses are most of the time they have this, what do you call that? They are not stable. They have these flights of idiosyncrasies flaring up here and there, and that's why there's a popular word that's called as eccentric millionaires. I don't know if you have watched that or read that story, the eccentric millionaire. So the point, what I'm trying to say is, the young man had the fear, what if he had mentioned something inappropriate, or what if he mentioned something inappropriate and the bosses around him, they get fired up, they get angry, they get annoyed, because he's going into uncharted territory, and immediately, Tommy boy, it's time for you to go. Okay, the next point the speaker was mentioning about is exposure. Now, there is just one problem with exposure. Familiarity breeds contempt. If you want to say it the other way, familiarity breeds bugs. Well, and then he goes on to say, you need to find your voice. Now, finding your voice. So my question is, how would one be able to find his or her voice when they are under constant fear? That is the big question that you need to ask. You understand what I'm saying? You are not able to get up from the bed, but you have been advised by the so-called advisors to start your early morning walk. Now the question is, how are you going to get up from your bed? Do you follow what I'm trying to say? Now, when you have so many innumerable challenges that are taunting you, how are you going to find your voice? Of course, deep down in you, there is that voice, there is that ability to come out. It's waiting to come out. But for that to occur, for that to happen, you suitably need a conducive environment for that part of you to be reflected. So, how are you going to find your voice? That's an important question to ask. Because it's easy to just make a statement and say, oh, you need to find a voice. Well, I saw this Russian movie. Now, a ship is basically passing through an ocean which is totally surrounded by ice cubes, or I would say totally huge ice cubes, huge snow cubes, so snow blocks. I'm not sure whether they are passing through Arctic or which part of the world. I don't know, because that it's a Russian movie. There's no translation. So as the ship is moving on this ocean, which is totally surrounded by ice, just merely a pathway for the ship to move, suddenly a dog slips from the ship and falls into the ocean. Now, the owner of the dog, he jumps back following he jumps into the ocean following the dog to save the dog. Now, both of them are trying to hold on to life. Now, what happens here? His friend, he sees the plight and he jumps into the ocean. The ocean is frozen, right? But when I say frozen, there's just a small opening, and the water is beyond what imaginable limits of freezing points. I don't know what's the temperature should be. So I don't want to insinuate. I can only trigger your imagination. So it's beyond the mind could comprehend with regard to the freezing points of the water. It's chill. So these two people are suffering. The friend jumps into the ocean to save his friend, but he could not save his friend. His friend goes down, but he saves the dog and he comes out. Apparently, he realizes that his voice has left him. His voice is gone. So the entire movie, he is dumb. He couldn't speak. Now it so happens that he has been put on watch on that particular day on the ship, on the deck of the ship, and then he sees a huge mountain which is melting down. But apparently the process in which it melts down is it's ripping apart itself by natural changes. So the rocks from the mountain is moving towards the ship to rip the ship apart. But he has got no way to inform his colleagues, because he couldn't speak. He's dumb. So he sees the scenario, he knows that the ship is going to be, in no time, it's going to be destroyed by these rocks which are coming towards the ship. That situation, that event, triggers the voice that he lost because of the freezing cold. So it's a near-death experience. It's a near-death experiences, and he shouts forth, bringing everyone to the realization that they are going to be losing their lives, because if they don't act, the stone and the rocks from that mountain is going to be submerging or hitting the ship and making it null and void. So the point what I'm trying to tell you here is the speaker talks about finding your voice. It's easily said, but how are you going to find your voice? You follow what I'm saying? Well, this is just a reaction video. I'm not here to give any tips or I'm here to raise certain important questions so that the speaker, at least in the next video that he or she is making, can address these situations. Okay, the next final point is meeting people who have information or who have the ability to solve your issues or solve your questions. You have to understand, when people are suffering from certain scenarios or certain issues, they're not going to be outrightly coming out in searching for help or seeking help. It's easily said, as I said to you. It's easily said. You need to do this, you need to do that, there are two challenges that are here. The first challenge is that how are you going to make people to come out of the challenges that they are facing? Number two, how would it be possible to locate these resourceful people who have this ability to solve issues and situations that the individuals are facing? Because most of the times, your group, your friends, whom you consider as friends, are at your level. There's a beautiful saying which this man said, you cannot expect to become an eagle when you are moving with ducks. You understand what I'm saying? When you are with ducks, don't even imagine that you are going to become an eagle. So what you have to do for seeking out people, seeking out a support group, because most of the time your support group is going to be your friends who are at your par or at your level. So how would they be able to help you? It's impossible. That's what Einstein said. If you were to look for solutions to a question with the same thought process that at the first place initiated the problem, you will never arrive at the solution. So you need to do something beyond that. Now, towards the end, the speaker was saying, you don't fear for the other. He mentioned something like that. I don't know what exactly he was trying to say. But towards the end, he says that whenever you meet people, irrespective of color and race and things like that, there are good people and there are bad people. I have an issue with that. My point, this is the single most reason people are closing themselves, shutting the door behind them. This is the single most issues. This is the single most problem that 90% of the people are suffering from. You know what? They are highly judgmental. These set of people are bad. Those set of people are good. Look, let me tell you one thing. People are neither bad nor good. Just because somebody gives you a napkin, it doesn't mean he or she is good. Just because somebody does not give you a pen to sign on the check in the bank, it doesn't mean he or she is bad. This is the main issue with people. If someone does them a favor, immediately they say they are good, and someone who doesn't oblige them with that favor, they condemn them. They say this person is bad. I don't want to, what should I say? That act of condemnation, who are we to judge? Even Jesus said, I have not come to this world to judge. So who are we to judge? So now, just to wrap up, from my point of view, I want to give you certain tips how to overcome the fear of public speaking. Let me share that. First and foremost thing, when you get on the stage, don't have expectations. Do not even expect anybody would stand up for you and appreciate or applaud or give you acclamations that you wanted to have. No. Okay, now when you do not have expectations, you won't get hurt. That's the first point. Number two, remember, develop a very thick skin, because after you had spoken your keynote address or whatever be the speech, you're bound to be criticized. If somebody comes up and tells you, look, whatever point that you had made, I don't appreciate it or I don't accept the point, right? And they would initiate a debate process. They would initiate a debate. They would challenge you. Now, most of the time, people become very sensitive. They would get themselves freely involved in the debate. They would say, no, my point is the best point. And they will go out outrightly condemning the guy or condemning the person who had come up with this state of mind process, state of thought. No, whatever point that I said, it is the absolute truth, and there is nothing that is existing beyond that, or nothing would exist beyond that. No. There are some speakers who are so, they claim themselves to be religious speakers. Outrightly they will say, no, this is my point of view, this is what is written, and this is the truth, and whatever you are assuming or whatever you are following, it isn't the truth. Well, I would tell you, if what you are following is the truth and what the other person is following is not the truth, why are both existing? Do you follow that? Because truth alone should exist if it has to exist. Why is the conflicting claim or conflicting thought process that you say which is not true is existing? So, the point what I'm wishing to convey to you all is, if somebody is conflicting or contradicting or making accusation about your claim or your standpoint of view, do not engage them in a debate process. Don't do that. It only indicates your weakness. It shows that you're weak. You can't take up acquisitions. You can't take up people who are challenging your train of thought. It shows you're a weak-spirited man. Don't do that. So number 2 is develop a hard skin. Your skin should be so hard that no matter how they spit at you or frown at you or call you a scumbag, don't even bother about that. Say that, okay, I'm very thankful to your opinion. I really appreciate your time that you have taken and giving a feedback about my talk. Fantastic. God bless. Just move on. That's the number 2 point. Number 3 point, competence is necessary. Now, if you are asked to give a keynote address or some point or some discussion topic on the stage, you should be competent. That means your domain knowledge should be at least above average. Because you cannot go up on the stage and beat your drums and blow your horn and say that this is what the existing situation is and I'm talking about this. And if a question were to be posed on you or at you and you say, no, go Google it out. You follow me? I'm not joking. There are a lot of people who say if a question comes up to them, they will say, go Google it out. Go Google it out. Are you with me? So, competence is necessary. Are you the best in your field? Then go up. Take up this public speaking or take up this keynote address and speak. Do sufficient research. You see, innumerable YouTube content are now coming up. So much so that people have lost faith on seeing videos now. Because most of the content that are being produced, they are only viewing things in a single dimensions. They always say, I do this, I don't do this, I pursue this, I practice this. It's always about I, people. It's always about I. I do this, I like this, I love this. No. So the final point I wish to say, become competent. Whatever be the talk that you are being asked to do or asked to give or asked to share, become a specialist in that area. One man said, if you are picking up garbage, you become a specialist in picking up a garbage. I think it's Mr. Proctor who said, he became a specialist in cleaning floors, so much so that he was literally controlling the floor cleaning market, floor cleaning business in all of US. So, perfection is important. So, it's always said practice makes you perfect. No. It's not practice makes you perfect. It's perfect practice makes you perfect. Many people keep practicing all incorrect things. So, my suggestion or my word of thought to you is, first and foremost thing, have no expectations. Number 2, develop a hard skin. Number 3, become competent on the topic. These are some of these skills that you need to develop if you want to become a public speaker. Well, are these exhaustive? Do they cover every parameter of public speaking? No. Thank you, people, and enjoy your beautiful day.